The day of my husband's funeral was one of the darkest in my life. James had been more than a husband. He was my best friend, my anchor, and losing him left a void I didn't think I could ever fill. Friends and family offered condolences, hugs, and kind words, but none of it seemed to reach the numbness inside me. I moved through the motions like a ghost, feeling disconnected from a world that continued despite my grief. A week later, I attended my nephew's first birthday party. It was my sister's son, and despite my emotional turmoil, I wanted to support my sister and be present for my family. The party was colorful, filled with laughter, balloons, and the joyful chaos that only a room full of young children can create. I smiled politely, greeting relatives and friends, but inside I still felt hollow. As I navigated through the crowd, sipping on water instead of the champagne that flowed freely, I noticed my sister Laura, standing near the cake with a wide grin. I assumed she would simply celebrate her son, but then she turned to the gathered family and made an announcement. "Everyone, I have something to share," she said, her tone unusually dramatic. "I just found out something incredible, and I can't wait to tell you all." I froze. My heart, still raw from James' passing, skipped a beat. What could possibly be so important that it overshadowed my grief and the somber mood I carried? Laura continued, her smile radiant. "I'm pregnant again. We're having another baby." Gasps of excitement filled the room, and people began clapping and congratulating her. But for me, the moment hit differently. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over me. Happiness for my sister and her growing family, but also an unexpected pang of envy, frustration, and an odd sense of displacement. I realized painfully that while I was grieving the sudden loss of my life partner, others around me were celebrating new life, oblivious to the storm of sorrow inside me. I smiled, forcing myself to appear genuinely happy. "Congratulations, Laura," I said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. She beamed at me, oblivious to the emotional conflict her announcement had triggered. I found a quiet corner and sat down, trying to collect my thoughts. The juxtaposition of life and death, joy and grief, struck me with full force. Just days ago, I had been at a funeral, watching the man I loved laid to rest. Now, I was surrounded by balloons and cake, witnessing the beginning of new life. The contrast was jarring, almost cruel in its timing. As the party continued, I observed the interactions around me. Friends laughed, children squealed, and Laura was glowing with excitement. I realized that life moves forward relentlessly, indifferent to individual pain. Yet in that moment, I also understood that I had a choice: to allow grief to consume me entirely, or to find a way to navigate through it, acknowledging both sorrow and the small sparks of joy that still existed. Later, Laura approached me privately. "I know this might be hard for you," she said gently. "I didn't mean to overshadow anything. I just wanted to share our news with family." I took a deep breath, letting the tension in my chest ease slightly. "I know, Laura. It's just, everything is still so raw. James is gone, and it's a lot to process." She nodded, her expression softening. "I understand. And I want you to know that we're here for you, always. You're not alone." Her words, simple as they were, brought a measure of comfort. I realized that even in moments when life seems unfair, when grief collides with celebration, there is still room for connection, support, and love. My sister's announcement, though initially jarring, reminded me that life continues, that joy and sorrow often coexist, and that I had the strength to navigate both. By the end of the party, I had allowed myself to feel both emotions fully. I cried quietly when I needed to, laughed when I could, and acknowledged the strange mixture of pain and hope that defined the day. It wasn't easy, and it didn't erase the grief I carried for James, but it was a step toward healing. That birthday party, with its unexpected announcement, became a turning point. It taught me that grief does not have to silence joy entirely, and that life, in all its complexity, offers opportunities for resilience, empathy, and the acceptance of conflicting emotions. The world doesn't pause for mourning, and learning to navigate that reality is part of the journey of healing. As I left the party, I looked at my sister, her smile radiant as she cradled her growing belly, and I felt a bittersweet mixture of love, hope, and sorrow. Life moves forward, sometimes without regard for our timing or readiness. But in that forward motion, there is also a chance to rediscover strength, embrace family, and find moments of light even in the shadow of profound loss.